It's a great pleasure, and I would like to thank you for the invitation to speak more or less in the panel with a lot of partners and friends working together over 20 years for the development of the Danube is always a pleasure. And I would like to show you a little bit what is the basic figures in the year 2020 for the cargo traffic on the Danube. I hope you can see my presentation now.
Yeah, we see perfectly.
Thank you. And my course of the presentation will take a look into the hydrological and economic framework conditions. Because transport on the Danube is very much influenced by the water levels, by the available water levels. And it's also clearly bound to the economic course of the Danube region. I will give you some overview figures on the transport volumes achieved in 2020 in relation to 2019. And a few words on the transshipment volumes in the Danube ports. Also some statements on freight rates and bunker fuel prices. And then I will take a look into the outlook, overall outlook and trends in Q1 2021. And all these information which I'm providing today comes from a publication of the Danube Commission Secretariat. This is called Market Observation. And there we publish every quarter a quite voluminous report where we collect information from the authorities, from the lock operators, for example, from the ports, and also from the industry. And in addition to the quarterly reports, we also publish an yearly summary. And I refer primarily to this yearly summary report of 2020. Well, as I said, Danube transportation depends on the hydrological and economic framework conditions. And when we look into the hydrological conditions, 2020 was a comparably good year from the viewpoint of the nautical conditions. We had relatively few days where we had water depths coming close to the low water regulation level. That happened only a few times, and we did not go significantly below this level. And therefore also and you can see this also on the figure on the chart, the draft, the wear of the vessel was fairly good. We also did not have ice conditions. We only had 3.5 days recorded with a high water levels. There was let's say mini floods in upper and middle Danube in August. And I also must say that the waterway administrations performed the dredging on the critical sections. It always can be better. This is clear, but I have also registered that the major dredging work has been performed, and this certainly also contributed to let's put it like this, quite good, acceptable conditions. So the economic framework, we started very well in the first 2 months into the transport markets, and you all know that COVID-19 came up then, and it had a quite a significant impact from mid-March, despite there was some recovery in the third quarter. And what was it what we could record? We saw a decline in raw materials for metal processing industry and for metal products, particularly the automotive industry started to struggle. And we also have seen decreases volumes in the construction sector and in the manufacturing of industrial equipment. Not dramatically, but also at a level which can be seen from the statistics. We also faced, in addition, a reduction of metal import quotas to the European Union and new custom duties. And this sector did not really stabilize until the end of 2020. On the other hand, we saw large volumes of grain and other agricultural projects being transported from the ports in the middle Danube to the ports on the lower Danube, especially to Constanza. And these transport of grain more or less enabled some certain balance of freight transport on the Danube 2020, at least when we look into the overall figures. Petroleum products and products of the chemical industry were relatively stable during the year, a little bit even surprising for some experts. During the pandemic situation, when it came up in March, April, May, June, but also then in the second wave, the Danube Commission, the Secretariat was very active to inform, to intervene, and to communicate with the member states and with the sector, also to make sure that the pain and the barriers being built up due to the regulations of the Danube states to protect the people do not unnecessarily harm also the cargo flow on the Danube. In particular, we were pushing for the green lane concept of the European Union. So what was the transport volumes? Just to give you a few figures. When we look into the cross-border transport flows, so Germany, Austria, we see a little bit more than 2.3 million tons. But there we can record a clear decrease, a significant decrease, which was not that big in the flow Hungary, Slovakia, with a volume of 5 million tons. And as I said already, the trade flows from Hungary to Croatia, Serbia increased. So this was the export of grain predominantly increased by 9.5%. On the Black Sea Canal, we had 16.5 million tons of cargo, a slight reduction, and on the Sulina, we could record 4.5 million tons, which was a little bit bigger decrease. When we looked into the structure of the cargo flows, we have seen on the upper Danube more cargo vessels, motor cargo vessels, which made up more than 50%. And there we have seen an increase. And also towards the year 2019. What we could record is an decrease in the vessel utilization. So the average loading of the vessels of 110 meter, because we also get very good statistics. So which types of vessels are transporting the cargo on what section of the Danube was lower, in particular in the May-June sector. But that also has to do a little bit of the nautical conditions compared to 2019. Well, looking into the cargo flows at Kapchikovo, as I said, the Slovak authorities and the Hungarian authorities from Mohacs provide us with excellent detailed information. And here we see that through Kapchikovo 5 million tons have been transported in 2020. This is a reduction of roughly 15% compared to 2019. Out of this, we had 4.2 million tons of dry goods and roughly 800,000 tons of liquid cargo. We see clear majority of the volume goes upstream and with more than 3 million tons and 1 million ton roughly downstream. And from the upstream is most of the traffic is transit traffic. Yeah? We also see that push convoys more or less were and motor vessels shared the workload almost evenly. And when we look into what type of motor cargo vessel, we see that most common was the 110-meter vessel, which was more or less dominating also the market. In Mohács, we recorded roughly 6 million tons, 5.5 million tons dry goods, 600,000 tons of liquid cargo. Also here we have significant transit traffic, but the majority of the traffic on the middle Danube is already executed with the pushed convoys. You see the relation is 75% to 24%, and the largest share of transport was accounted for grain and iron ore. When you look into the figure on the right-hand side, you see that we had a significant increase of transportation of grains. Almost more than 1 million tons have been recorded, and this was able to offset the cargo losses, in particular in the import stream of iron ore and coal and other commodities. Well, I also have provided some figures on the lower Danube in the Black Sea canal, as I said, but I assume that this will be presented also by the representative of the Black Sea canal, so I don't go into the details there. On the Sulina canal, as I said before, we had 4.5 million tons of cargo. And there it was from the Danube to the Black Sea, so the export was 2.9 million tons, and the import side was roughly 1.7 million tons. What was the situation with the ports? In all the ports, we could, of the Danube countries, we reached roughly 65 million tons of transshipment. So this was about 94% of the volume in 2019. But there were, as I said, differences in the distribution over the year, and also in the cargo groups, in the material groups. Yeah. I do not go into the details for each country. I assume that the presentation will be made available, but you see that it is more or less a relatively homogeneous picture with the development along the Danube. What was the freight market for the vessel operators? Well, we faced freight rates which were stable, more or less stable during the year. I think that was a situation which not everybody would have expected, but as I said before, balancing out also the volumes was able due to the good harvest in the on the middle Danube, and this stabilized certainly the freight rates. The good thing for the barge operating companies was that the price of bunker fuel decreased significantly. compared to the median price in 2019. Well, what was the trend in Q1? Well, it's clearly difficult to compare 2021 with 2020, but we assume that on the market there's a slight positive development for the main industrial and agricultural sector going on. What was clear, we had a quite good winter period, which ensured uninterrupted navigation. And also we had good drafts of the cargo ships going up to 2.5 meters. When we look into the traffic volumes in the first quarter recorded in Chicago, we see 1.2 million tons. Which is behind the first quarter 2020. And we see at Mohács 1.7 million tons, which is still higher than Q1. So obviously the transport of the grains are still ongoing. And what is a feature in the first quarter. We see an increase of the upstream transport of iron ore and then a significant increase in downstream transport of grain. So this is also something what can be recorded. It is not, I would say, completely untypical. It can be explained when you know the structures of the transport logistics flows in the region. The Black Sea Canal recorded 4.4 million tons, which was clearly above Q1 2020. And in general, we expect and we hope that we will see a general recovery of the freight transport market in 2021, particularly due to the forecasted 4% economic growth in the Eurozone GDP. And I think with the good and stable fairway conditions, I think that 2021 should be a year which also brings success stories for the users and for the operators on the Danube. And as I said, my figures refer primarily to the market observation, and I would like to draw your attention also to the fact that we will publish a completely new our statistical yearbook for the edition 2018-19, 2020 in autumn this year, and then we hopefully will not only be able to give you the right figures, but also to provide you the figures in the right way. So we have completely overhauled our statistical publishing concept so that also our figures add some value for the market. Well, I would like to thank you for your attention and hope that this was a good opener for fruitful discussions of the industry. Thank you very much.